Hi, you guys. Hey, I like this. It's very intimate. Thanks for being here. I'm Amy Kaufman. I am an entertainment writer at the LA Times. And tonight we're here to talk to Dane Cook. You skipped I was gonna list all your creds. But
No, I wanted to be here for that.
Okay.
I thought it would be really wonderful for me to sit here and listen to my credits in front of everyone.
Cool.
Did you guys have fun, by the way, watching the stuff? Yeah. I walked down the hall and I heard my own voice. It's always weird when you hear your own voice coming from a random room somewhere. As I'm walking, I was like, what? Where? I'm here already? I've time jumped. It's nice to see you again.
You too. And we heard everyone was laughing. You could hear them in the hall, so you guys
That's
must
great.
have enjoyed it.
Because it would have been bad if I walked down the hall and I heard like, what is this? He's wasting our time on purpose.
So I saw on Twitter when you were promoting this or talking about this event, you said you were going to be the only non-actor in the room, which is a funny joke.
I did say that, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
I feel like I snuck into this industry.
do you consider yourself an actor? You consider yourself a comedian?
I
Both?
do. I mean, I always wanted to. I wanted to be an entertainer. You know, when I was younger, I loved stand-up comedy. I was definitely drawn to that craft and comedians, but I was kind of like a song and dance man when I was in school. I was doing like Danny Zuko and Grease, and I was just interested in all facets of entertainment, as well as even the production end and putting together plays. And so for me, even though stand-up is my, kind of my bread and butter, I enjoy all elements of this profession.
So you grew up in Boston.
I did.
And yeah, full
Right.
Bostonians.
Yeah. Boston.
Yes.
Fucking Boston, kid. I was just back there, and that's literally what people. I got off the plane, I walked through Logan Airport, and here's how people. This is how people always recognize you when you're a well-known person. They walk by you, then they lean like this, they look at you, make an incredulous look, and then they finally point slowly at you, and then they tell you who you are. You're Dane fucking Cook. I'm like, that is right. That's what it says on my license.
Yeah, I bet the reaction you get in your hometown is pretty different.
It's
than
great.
that.
Yeah, and they tell you like it is too. They'll be like, oh, hey, Dane Cook, oh, why'd you do that dumb movie with the girl? It's like, what was that shit?
What do you respond to that?
I'd be like, Daddy needed some video game money. It's... No, you can't. You just, when I go back east, it's almost like a cleansing of sorts, because you go back there and people tell you true. They'll come in and they'll give you it's almost like stand-up. You can go up and get the most uproarious round of applause, and that'll last for a couple minutes, and then people are like, all right, give me the goods. And I feel like people are like that on the street back in Massachusetts, and I appreciate that. I like that. I like getting my butt handed to me once in a while. Because in LA, everybody's just like, oh, it's great. Everything's so great, man. It's great. I enjoyed all of that. It's so good.
Kiss in the ring.
Yeah.
So, growing up in Boston, what was your idea of Hollywood? Did you think this is like
Hollywood Squares. I thought everybody just played game shows out here all day long with each other. What did I think of Hollywood? Probably just what I knew from, films about Hollywood. I thought it was, and then you hear all these things that it's piranhas. You have to be careful because around every corner there's an agent holding an axe. And so I was a little bit, unprepared, because once I finally got here, I found that I had a real affinity for this city, and the reason I wanted to stay because I used to say it's a bit of a mining town, and it's worth chipping away because there's nuggets of gold here, and that's creative people with great ideas. And I think when you find that person, and then you can find a few more people that are like-minded, it's up to you to then put together your team of people and try to forge ahead with your ideas, those like-minded ideas. And I like that. I like the building process. The same way I like that with my comedy routine, I enjoy that aspect of a career as well.
So growing up, tell us about some of your influences. I remember you saying you really were a big fan of the King of Comedy.
I did. Well, I love the King of Comedy because I loved Jerry Lewis growing up. And you've heard of Jerry Lewis, obviously. He's the, I always have to do that. It makes him laugh. And so he, took this and I knew I wanted to be a comedian, and I knew that I enjoyed being, outrageous, and I liked making people laugh in very kind of slapstick ways. Again, emulating maybe Jerry Lewis. And then when I saw him in that movie as in a dramatic turn, I was so impressed by it, and it actually gave me some confidence to think, oh, maybe I can do both. Maybe there's the ability to connect with people through comedy and through dramatic storytelling. So that was a major impact on me early on in my career.
Was your first inclination to do comedy? Like, were you the funny kid in your house or at school?
No, I was the least funny person at school. I was voted least funny person at the school. I was really, I'm an introvert by nature. I was very shy. I used to have panic attacks almost every day going to school at the thought of being around people.
Wow.
I grew up with a mother who was very phobic. In fact, when she was carrying me, she was highly agoraphobic.
Didn't want to go outside?
Didn't want to go outside. And then when I was born, she didn't take me outside for almost a full year. She was living with her mother, and she said one day she looked out the window and there was a young mother with her kid in a stroller walking by, and she had like a breakdown. She thought, like, I need to be able to bring my son outside. So she started bringing me out, and she fought through it, but I absorbed a lot of it. So I had a very I had a lot of, I wasn't funny. I was funny at home, and I enjoyed making my family. I was kind of caught up at home in characters and putting on my mom's wigs and just doing all kinds of, being rambunctious and wild. But when I left the house, I had a lot of insecurity and self-loathing, and I had to deal with all that for a lot of years before I finally figured out how to like myself.
Were you working through that stuff through the comedy?
Yeah, all the way up until yesterday. And now I feel fucking
You're still
great.
doing it,
I'm
yeah.
feeling awesome. I am still dealing with it, but it's I try to put it all in the work. I in a very strange. I don't enjoy down days, and I've definitely in this industry or like in life, had some trials and some traumas. But I kind of like feeling it because I like knowing that then I would have the ability possibly to put it into a performance somewhere. So there's certain things that have happened in my life that you almost kind of put into a little lockbox and go like, I'm always going to remember how I explored that feeling. And then maybe someday I'll have a chance to put that into something. I knew Jamie Foxx for a lot of years doing stand-up. And there was a time in his career where he was, he was doing whatever, Booty Call 5 or something. And he was... he kind of knew that he was like, on fucking Echo Base. He was on the outskirts. But Ray was in him. And, we talked about some of the things that happened in his life. He has an extraordinary story, Jamie Foxx. And he finally had that opportunity. And when he had that chance, he put all that stuff in there. And so there's stuff I've been able to do that with. And then there's a whole bunch that I'm hoping that I can still do that with.
So of course, we're in a room full of actors.
What?
Yeah. What do you? So everyone, I'm sure, has their own story of how they decided to come out here and pursue this dream, and everyone's parents who thought they were crazy. Were your parents supportive, and how did you decide to sort of make that jump?
My mom was incredibly supportive, and I had a dad who was very kind of old school Boston type and didn't embrace the arts. He was an athlete. He was from the lineage of men that were like, my ancestors built like railroads and they were just workers. They all had hands with like cuts on them constantly. And then I came along and I was watching Saturday Night Live in 7th grade. I was watching Martin Short and everything clicked. I'd been watching comedy up until then and really studying comedy, but that was the night that I decided I need to be there. I need to be on Saturday Night Live. And almost instantaneously, my mother was like, "Yes, that's exactly what you should do." And she was, her nickname was the Compass because she always knew the direction that I was going to be going in, almost to the moment that I decided. My dad, it took him a long, long time. He was working at a pro shop at a golf course, and 6 years into me doing stand-up comedy, and I'd done David Letterman, and I had a couple of cool little spots here and there, and he would still call me up and be like, "You want a fucking caddy over the summer?" And I'd be like, I remember one time saying I was like, "No, this is kind of a lifestyle thing I'm doing here, Pop. I'm in it. I'm in it to see how far I can take it." And he'd be like, "All right, keep a spot open for you." He just didn't quite get it until I started doing some charity work, and it was affiliating myself with athletes and people that he spoke their language and vice versa. And once he was around, Bobby Orr and certain people like that, he was like, "Oh wow, my son is like doing something, and this is meaningful to people." So
right, it wasn't Madison Square Garden; it was just like his sports heroes.
No, yeah, he didn't care about Madison Square Garden. He, when I met Frank Rizzo, he was like, "Oh my God." That was, he liked the VIP tickets too to like Red Sox games and stuff. That's when he was, really like, he'd be like, "Oh, you're doing okay." But I will say that, in his last few years of life, my parents both lost a battle to cancer in the same year. I lost both my mom and dad. Yeah, and in the last few years, he knew the lingo and he got it, and I think he really was helping me to be strategic in how I wanted to continue on in my career, and how I didn't like some of the choices I was, not that I didn't like, but I wanted to make better choices. And he was able to communicate with me in a way that, after many, many years, where he could finally be an ally and help me to, say no during times when it was scary to say no because there's no work, and then you're saying no to something that maybe you should just jump on, but that's not going to fulfill you. And he knew that, so he helped in those last few years.
So two compasses.
Two compasses in the end, yeah.
So you've been pretty open about, when you're an actor and you're getting your first jobs, it can be hard to turn down work, even if it's not something you necessarily are into.
Right.
Paycheck gigs. Was it difficult early on to know what was right to do?
Early on, it's you kind of. It's almost like you're just building up relationships, so you might look and be like, I don't really want to do this tampon commercial. I'm a guy, and it's kind of weird.
I wish you'd really do that. That would be amazing on YouTube.
But you think like, oh, you know what? I want to, surround myself with people that are also, I'm sure maybe that director and that, that sound guy, and maybe not everybody here is looking, going like, this is it. This is my final destination. So you're trying to find, again, like-minded people, because I do believe it's about, getting that squad of people that want to, put up the good creative fight with you. And but it makes it difficult sometimes to say no, because you're like, I might meet somebody really interesting on this that does matter. And yet, for me, it was always about, if I can't find something truly creative in this that invigorates me, I won't do it. So much to my agents, and many agents were upset at me for a lot of years, I said no to a lot. I used to call it no business.
When did that start? Like, was there a moment where you're like, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah, I remember there was like a Starburst commercial, and they wanted me to sing this Starburst. I wanted to be like, I'm a fruit chew. What do you do? And I'm like, I just remember thinking like, I don't know. None of this really is. I didn't grow up feeling like I needed to be a fruit chew. I can't find any. I was fortunate that I had the stand-up, and the stand-up helped me pay the rent, so I could say no in some places that I thought maybe I could, circumvent and put that energy into something that really has more value to me. So, but I had the foundation of stand-up to be able to do that, and I know not everybody always has that opportunity.
So your first break was on an ABC sitcom, right, with Marie Osmond.
That is true. She was my mom.
It was called Maybe This Time. So tell
us
how
should have been called Maybe Not.
How did you get that gig?
How did I get that gig? I was performing in San Francisco. I was doing a comedy contest up there, and it was in the final. I was in the finals with Mitch Hedberg, and we'd been performing for 2 months together. The first time I ever saw Mitch. And again, this is right around 97. And really cool thing, if you're a fan of Mitch Hedberg, is I watched him find that character over 2 months. During the 2 month period that we were on this comedy mentor together. He was not the same. He had the jokes and the ideas, but he literally came into the character by the end of the comedy contest. And he will forever be one of my, I was watching him so much and enjoying him so much that I kind of forgot that I needed to, compete myself in this contest. But Michael Jacobs, the producer, was on vacation, and he came in to see one of the competitions at the San Francisco Punchline, and he approached me after the show, and he walked up and he introduced himself, and he said, "I'm doing a TV show with Betty White." And I was like, "Oh, I love Betty White. She's my favorite." And he looked at me and goes, "You think she could be your grandma?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I of course." And he goes, "All right, well, come down to L.A. and we want to talk to you. We need to add a character to this pilot we created." And so I went and I met with everybody, and I met with Betty White, and she she picked me. She said that she thought that I would be a great addition, and that was my first first television show I ever did. First time I was ever around really professional, astute people, and I ate it up. And I went there all day, every day, and I would just watch Betty White and ask questions. And one of my favorite things, I just shared it with you, is, and I can't watch a Golden Girls episode now without noticing this, a little trick to remember her lines, and all the women on the show would do this, is there's a lot of, coffee drinking. They would write their lines inside.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, or put them on the little sugar packets that they were always kind of looking at. And so now you watch that show, and they're constantly looking in and taking a sip.
That's crafty.
Yeah, she's very crafty. She was an incredible woman. We dated for several years. She's a sexual dynamo. Betty, whoa.
Oh man.
No, she's the best. I love her.
So when you were on,
and I got my SAG card. That was how I got my SAG card. And
so obviously you had been doing stand-up for a while at that point.
Yes.
When you were on that set, were there differences you noticed immediately about being sort of a more straight actor?
Oh yeah. No, I really got I was put through the machine, so to speak, of I was learning as I went. I remember we had a director, we had a few different directors, but this one director came up to me. It was the third episode. I just remember he just walked up and he gave everybody notes, and then he looked at me and goes, "You're indicating." And then he just walked away, and I didn't even know what that meant. I honest to God didn't know. I had no clue, but I knew it wasn't good. And I had to go and ask people. I was like, I'm indicating? What does that mean exactly? And then it was explained to me. And so I was making a television show, but at the same time, it was all a sandbox and learning and being around people that really impacted my formative years acting.
I'm thinking about Joan Rivers and a lot of other comedians who've said Joan was always saying she never felt like her comedic work was looked at as her being like a real actress.
Right.
Do you feel that way? Like the stuff you do when you're a
comedian? I don't think Joan was a real actress, no. No, I'm kidding.
Just rolling over in grave, yeah.
Do I feel like
Do you feel like when you're on stage as a stand-up comedian, are you acting?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because it's, we all have things that we deal with during our day, and sometimes that even makes it more difficult to approach stand-up because you're not feeling, very funny at all. I mean, I shared with you during that period where my folks were sick, they both, within 4 months, had 2 different cancers. I was on the biggest comedy tour of my life. I was playing arenas. I was doing 20, 30,000 seats a night. And I would spend the day when I could either with my folks, if I could be close to them, or talking to them, trying to provide the best care for them. And then I would be like, "All right, Mom, I love you." Okay, blah, blah. And then somebody would knock on the door. "You gotta go." I'd be like, "All right, cool. I'm gonna call you right after." Hang up, walk down a hall, and 20,000 people were waiting there for me.
How did you stay focused?
Because my mom loved that I made it so much that it was always the greatest. Her health was so improved by knowing I was doing what I loved. If I would go visit her, I would sit with her, I'd get her favorite ice cream, I would do A, B, and C, and then finally she would look and she'd say, "You know what would really make me feel so wonderful right now?" And I'd say, "What that?" And she'd be like, "If you would go and perform somewhere, just like I hoped and raised you to do." And because she was on early gigs with me. She used to drive to the fucking we would drive to gigs where I would come off and she would just be like this. Like the worst. I would bomb so bad sometimes, and people just be like, you'd hear somebody just be like, what the fuck? And then you hear my mom be like, hey, give him a shot. That boy good. So
Just like places around New England?
Oh yeah. She would go to a lot of my gigs with me. In fact, for many, many years, if I had 7 shows somewhere in New England, she was at all 7. She never missed a show. Wow. Never missed a show. And so it was not hard to get on stage because I loved sharing the updates and the pictures and the videos. It wasn't until years later where I really had to learn what grieving was and deal with that it was that I went through a real tumultuous time, and it was tricky. It was a lot of knots I had to undo. But during that time, it was definitely acting because you had to, put yourself in that mentality. I truly feel like comedic acting, especially in film and theater, when done right, you can do a drama and you have to dig very deep, but you can be on your own metronome. You can be on your own rhythm. You're in a scene of comedy. Everybody has to be assimilated and understanding and volleying and doing it without putting anything into it. Comedy, when done right, is incredibly intricate. And so I'm one that believes that people should be, those performances should be praised more for that time and effort.
You've been pretty open about, your parents, and I know you had a betrayal with your business on your business side as well. And I've interviewed Dane before, and I met him at one point. He thought he was not, he told me he was not even going to do stand-up anymore, just because. That was
my Jay-Z retiring moment. That was.
But how did you sort of, obviously it was a really dark period. How did you move past that?
Well, because something funny occurred to me one day. And it was this. This was actually the longest break that I ever had in my career, was between the idea that time and then making Troublemaker. And some things just started occurring to me. I did take the time off. I took almost a year off from stand-up. I've been doing it 25 years. At that time, I had been doing it. It was like my 22nd year. And I knew that I needed to take that time, and the idea was I was going to work as hard on myself as I ever had on my career. That was my goal that year, and I did all the work and got a lot of stuff out and surrounded myself with incredible people in my life and important people. Got rid of the ones that were shit bums, and I got back to what I felt like was the core of me, which is to make people laugh. People laugh, I feel good. So that was the start of that kind of the act 2 of my life and career.
So when Act 2 began, did you know you wanted to direct Troublemaker as well as...
I did.
You did? Okay.
I really did. And again, it kind of comes back to Jerry Lewis, where I was just, if you know anything about his history, and if you have a chance, there's a great documentary, Method to the Madness, just came out a couple of years ago. It's all over Showtime and stuff. And it's all about his, that the real 10 to 15 years him and Dean were on top of the world. And Jerry was writing and directing and producing and starring and also innovating. He was creating technology. The playback monitor is Jerry Lewis. He invented that. He literally went to Tokyo and said, I need to be able to see myself while I'm making a movie to know if I'm getting the right comedic. That's Jerry Lewis,
That's crazy.
We all use that, and that's Jerry Lewis' invention. So I always felt like I wished that I could be in a situation where I could trust my own voice, to where I could present the entire 100% of my ideas. In comedy, like anything, there's always editors and there's always somebody coming in and standards and practice and coming in and you can't do this and we won't air that. This was the first thing that I ever did in my career where I paid for it, I shot it, I finished it, and then when Showtime initially said we want to air it, I said the only thing I'm asking is I want it to air as is. Warts and all, whatever. It's a little out of focus here. It's whatever. This is as real to me as anything that I've ever done. And I was fortunate to have a great partnership with them, and that's why you're here.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks.
So we're going to get to audience questions in a second, but glimpsing through them, I saw a lot about people were curious about how you gather your material, and I was too, especially the jokes about.
I like the word gather my material. Like I have a basket and I'm in a field of wheat and I'm just gathering my material.
But like the ones where you're in line or you're texting, are you like thinking, okay, and like take a note on the side?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Yes. I was in a relationship with a woman, and I remember one time we were having a fight, a skirmish, a verbal melee. And we were going back and forth, and I don't know, I kept just kind of like feeding into it. And then finally she said, I don't feel like you're looking at me. I feel like you're observing me. And I really was. I was like, I am. I was like completely just and knowing in that moment, like, people do this. That's the voice I hear a lot in my head. Like, people do this. People do this. This has to be. And early in my comedy career, every Monday when I was living in New York, I would take my notepad and I would have Comedy Perspective POV Monday. And I would just walk around all day on a Monday and look at everything through the eyes of what's funny. Like everything. And I would put myself in places that I didn't even want to go just to be like, what's going to happen in this museum or on this subway ride? And I find myself still having that same tool come into play sometime. And yeah, it all gets gathered, put in the memory bank, and then I work it out for a year on stage and try to figure out what really is funny and what is just funny to me.
It's funny you mentioned that girlfriend because
she's here.
Yeah, hey girl. I was like, oh my God, the women you date must be so scared that you're gonna make jokes about them, right? Or
they do, but I think they like it. I think that's kind of part of like why people sometimes want to date me, because they'll be like on that first date, they'll be like, so am I going to be in the act? And I'm like, yeah, if you do some interesting shit, then maybe it'll...
They asked, am I going to be in the act?
Yeah, no, when people date a comic, I think part of it is they're hoping that they're going to vicariously, something's going to end up as part of your repertoire when you're up there. So yes, that I've gotten in plenty of trouble with that, but at the same time, there's a lot of like little Easter eggs and shout outs that I do that I hide throughout my performance. I'll get phone calls from exes, and they'll be like, that was me, right? Yeah, I hide things in there all the time. So,
everyone talks about how you your rise to comedy had a lot to do with the internet and MySpace, but you're still all over the internet, and you're one of the rare celebrities who legitimately has conversations and picture exchanges with your fans.
Yeah.
Like if you go on his Twitter, you'll see, direct message me all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Why is that important to you to maintain that relationship?
It's incredibly important to me. I received an email several years ago, and it was at a time when I was kind of in a personal transition. I was in a rut, and I was like, I don't really know what to do next, and I feel like I already explored A and B. Is there more to me? I kind of hit a wall creatively, and this guy wrote me an email. It was so simple and concise. He said, in high school you were talking to me, in college you were talking to me, and I have a family now, and I still feel like you're talking to me. And I was like, I've grown up with a generation of comedy fans. And once I realized that, it was like this kind of great gift to be able to correspond with people and to get emails as I have and now, comments and direct messages from, troops overseas, where, I may have sent them, CDs or something like that, for them to listen to comedy. To have that interaction, I think I don't want to isolate myself from people. I think some comics used to have a problem with me and say, it's pandering. No, it's business. I feel like it's business. The business of understanding what your fans are appreciating about you. It doesn't change the integrity. I'm still going to do what I want to do, but I think it's important to not segregate yourself from people and think like, I've got it all figured out. I think you're on the way down the other side when you start going with that. A couple of days ago, I just posted something on my Instagram. This young woman wrote me and said that, she was suicidal, and she shared some very, very personal details, and I was so moved emotionally by it. I said, could I? I'll make it anonymous if you'd like, but could I post this and share this with other people? Because I think that it's important for young people, especially, to see that hopelessness past. I had it as well. I didn't have those dark thoughts of suicide, but I knew the feeling of feeling worthless. And that's a fine line to taking you down a really terrible road. So I do like to read those things. And yeah, sometimes, haters will, they know that I read those too. So I definitely, every couple days get the, just fucking quit. You stink. You had your time, man. It's over. Kevin Hart's funny now, not you. It's like,
Oh, God.
it every couple days, but I promise you, it's worth all the. I actually am amused by that stuff too, more than ruffled by it.
You must have like one of the thickest skins in the business. You never seem. I mean, you went through a period where people were like throwing a lot of stuff.
And you know what? I am a good actor.
Oh,
See how I did that?
nice.
No, you have to get the thick skin. Listen, we're in the business of rejection. We're all sitting at a blackjack table, hoping for a great shoe, because once you get it, then you can get on a creative tear. But there's a lot of things. I believe luck comes later. I think that it's all preparedness, and I think it's really being tenacious, and I think it's manifesting. I know that some people use that word in such a kind of a I don't know, crystal silly way, but I really believe that there's that we all have that ability to see something, and there's that great quote about the universe, cooperating, and I totally think that's how I got to have the opportunities that I've had, and I still have rough days where I'm like, oh, I gotta manifest something new. I have to, that involves a lot of hard work and fortitude, and we live in it. That's what we are. You accept it. You accept that it's going to be incredibly difficult. Sometimes it's going to feel like you're just at a cul-de-sac, just the dead end. Where is this possibly going? But that's when you got to look up. That's when you got to look up, because great things happen in those intricate moments. Great things happen. That's where the kind of the good stuff is.
Have you
Really?
considered a motivational speaking career?
Have I?
Yeah.
I have actually. Yeah. No, I would love to do like a one-man show someday. I've thought about some ideas that could be, just kind of a mixture, like, because I love conversations like this, and I also just, I think that laughter is so greatly important, but no, I've now I'm kind of like a mentor to a lot of young comics, a lot of these guys that are new, I make myself available, and I say, listen, I can probably help you to get around some of the stuff that I can't believe happened to me, and then help you maybe figure out some of the things that are very obtainable. But I think more than anything, it's about that integrity, and I believe that you have to know that you're an individual, and once you know that you're not trying to get something to be like them, you're trying to bring them to something that you are. It's hard to keep that in focus sometimes, I know, and it's easier when you hear somebody who's made it say that, but I promise you, I've been in the ditches and down scraping along longer than I was, sitting up here talking with Amy, so I feel that, but it can all change instantaneously if you want that change. I think sometimes we don't want the change because the real truth is, not to get too therapy session, is like we're not quite ready to accept success. And I think I think a lot of people have that problem. I think that we're harder on ourselves than we need to be, because there's some knot that we haven't untied within ourselves because we don't feel like we truly deserve. The side of your brain that knows you're creative and knows that you have that ability and you want to share and you want to make great art is keeping you here. But there's also the pendulum swing, and there's something else going on inside of you that if you don't, Larry Moss, the great Larry Moss, the great acting instructor, yes, a tremendous, tremendous human being. I had the opportunity to sit with him. Greatest advice he ever gave me. He said, we got to know each other for a few minutes, and it got really emotional really quick. Like, he just has that thing. He just knows where to look. And he knew where to look with me. And he brought it up right away, and we talked about my youth, and then he just looked at me, and he said, "You're never going to fill that hole. You're never going to fill that hole, Dane." And I looked at him for a second, and I knew what he meant right away, and he goes, "So what you need to do is stop trying to put stuff in it and stop trying to hide it and cover it and fucking own it and show people, that's my hole, that's my pit, that's my darkness. And once you do that, you're on the other side." That's that's the pendulum swinging in your direction, because you're taking complete control of the things that you're capable of and that you want to work towards, and you're also taking ownership over the things that you'll never have a complete control over. And that, in turn, is some kind of control. You'll always have to, work on it and keep up on yourself. But I really think it's about knowing the all of yourself, knowing all facets, not just the creative side, but the stuff that makes you feel kind of crappy once in a while. Own that too.
Dane Cook is dropping wisdom tonight. I see
I'm
people
dropping
taking notes.
wisdom. People are taking notes,
Yes.
copious notes.
So, okay, I still see your name on the marquee at the Laugh Factory. It seems like every
Well, not the
weekend.
Laugh Factory.
No?
No, I'm not at the Laugh Factory. I'm at the Improv now. That's kind of
Oh,
been
you
my.
switched over.
It's not a residency, but
Okay.
it's where I've been working out. They've been really great down. It's a great stage, so I've been
Okay,
working
cool.
out some of my new stuff down at the Improv. If anybody wants to come down, then that's where you can find me most nights.
So are you, where are you at right now? Is stand-up where your energy is going? Are you looking for new acting projects?
I'm actually quitting the business once again.
Don't even
Every time
mess
I
with
talk
me.
to you, Amy, I've been working on a couple things. I've been working on my new special because this one I did. I directed that a year ago, November, and then held it, and it aired on Showtime this November. So I've been working for about a year and a half on my new special. So I have that done, and I'm going to direct that hopefully in a few months. I mean, maybe even end of July if I can get this one particular venue. But I really look forward to, and it's different. It's a different theme. It's a different kind of energy, and I learned a lot of what I should and shouldn't do from this one. And now I have my little team. I have a great team of people that helped me to put this together, and I'm grateful that they want to do it with me again. So we will.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's get to your guys' questions. Okay, sorry, I apologize in advance if I butcher anyone's name. This is from Josh Maya.
Yep.
He says, where do you travel to, quote, sharpen the axe between gigs?
Where do I try? Well, I mean, I think that I've always been kind of one of those people that I need to get on stage like anywhere you can get on stage. That's especially if it's a difficult night. That's always good. So I prefer to pop into places where it's not my crowd. And that's a good and bad thing. It's good because people are like, oh, they're excited. You get to see, Dane Cook. He did a pop in. Sometimes it's not so good because it's, they're there for, Hannibal Burr. They want to see somebody else.
Yeah.
And they go, we got a special guest tonight. And I've many times, they finally Dane Cook, and I go up and I'm like, I know I'm not Dave Chappelle. I'm sorry. And then they're like, all right, we'll take you. But that's good. That helps you sharpen the axe because then you're not just going up with a crowd that's already kind of in your possession. It's nice to go up and feel like you're a new comic again. I like that scary feeling of people being like, all right, what are you gonna make me laugh? I go.
Okay, Jermaine L. Williams. Wow. Have you ever forgotten a joke on stage, and if so, how did you recover?
Oh my goodness, yes. No, you know what happened to me a couple of times was if I was doing a lot of shows on the road and I would be doing like, early in your comedy career, you get hired from a Wednesday to a Sunday at some comedy spot, and then they want you to do, they'll add shows. So it was like, I did a Wednesday, 2 Thursday, 3 Friday, 3 Saturday. Like there was a certain period in my life I wasn't playing, hadn't thought like, oh, maybe I should just rent my own theater and do one great show. They just kept adding shows. And I would do that thing where I couldn't remember if I'd already said the joke, but it was from the show before. Or sometimes I didn't say the joke, and I'd be in the middle of a bit, and I would literally be like, yeah, and then I'm driving around, right? And you know how it is, you get the toll, and then I'd hear, and I'd just stop and be like, right? Like I wanted somebody to look and be like, yeah, you told us this already. And so that would happen a lot, or the opposite, where I would start going into the joke again, thinking, oh no, I did that on the last show. And that sucks because you're selling it the same way, where it's like, no, this is all off the top. You never heard me say this before. So then they see that you're like, you're a phony.
It's over.
This is an act. Get him.
Oh my gosh. So no forgetting, just repeating.
Oh, I've definitely forgotten, especially when working on new material. Then sometimes you're just right in the middle of it. Be like, what was I saying? And that's pretty much like a deeper part of your cerebellum being like, it sucks. Nobody's laughing. That's why you're not remembering it. So you just kind of discard it and move on.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Richard Martin wants to know, how do you calm your nerves before a big performance? Oh, do you still get panic attacks? Was that ever related to performance?
I still get anxiety. I have suffered from anxiety. Fortunately, not to the level of when I was younger. But no, was it how do I
Calm your nerves.
calm my nerves? No, I don't get nervous before shows. Even for the large scale shows, I would never get. I didn't have any kind of superstitions. I didn't have anything I needed to do before a show. I'm real easy. I like a couple of my friends around, and I like to talk pretty much all the way until somebody says it's time to go on. The only time I get nervous is like I could do a big show. When I do the meet and greet, that's when I get a little bit nervous.
A lot of people say that. Do you think it's just
Yeah.
the like face? It seems like faceless when you're up on stage or something.
I don't know. It's just I think that there's still that element to me where there's still part of me off stage that goes, why are people interested in me at all? And so you're waiting weirdly for somebody to, just look at you and be like, yeah, I'm the guy who's here to tell you are not fucking interesting at all. It's like some weird elementary school thing where, I still constantly have to, we all have to build ourselves up. Everybody has their own, we all have our own stuff. And I have to do that same thing. When I meet a group of people after a show, I for whatever reason, I still have to remind myself that, no, they're fans, they're here, they're excitable, nobody's going to kill me.
Aaron says, please share any bad audition stand-up stories.
Bad audition stand-up.
Slash stand-up stories, I guess.
Bad audition. Worst audition ever. I was at, there was a casting studio back in Boston. This is in 1991, and it was Collins and Pickman, I think was the name of the casting agency. Yeah. And there, I went into the room, and it was like some commercial. I was supposed to be like some kind of Tasmanian devil kind of, energetic, thing or whatever. And I remember I went into the room, and I was like, when I get in there, this is me talking to myself, like, I'm going to spin around really fast, like a literal tornado, like Tasmanian devil used to do. And my foot caught the tripod of the camera.
Oh.
And the camera flew and smashed. This camera was like the shoddiest camera ever because it literally broke into like 19 pieces. So I remember the casting director just grabbed the chair and she just goes, "Get out." Oh, it was the worst feeling of my entire life.
Oh my God, just run out and shake.
I think I was like, did I get the gig? No. Oh, it was the worst.
That's a pretty good one.
I only got one other audition there, and it was for a board game to be part of the family on the cover. So I just had to go in and hold fake money and go. And then like the dad was going to be like, the dad's always like, right? And the mom's always excited that her son won the game. And anyway, that was the only other thing they brought me in on. And I don't know, I guess I didn't look, interesting enough. I didn't get that gig.
The other one's worse, for sure.
I should have closed with that one.
Natalie Gray says, how important is management in a comic's success?
That's a really great question. How important is management? I think that you got to be careful. I think with any manager, it's somebody who's going to embrace your possibilities and somebody who really wants to sit down and formulate a plot with you based on what you think your strengths are, but also has the ability to be honest with you. I think a good manager gives you plenty of room to grow and room to spread your wings and to be able to call them in the middle of the night and say, I have an idea for something. And I think that to explore, I think that's a great manager. But sometimes, and I've had managers like this over the years, sometimes they get a little bit too where they think that they have the right idea. And I think you got to be careful sometimes of managers who were maybe wanting to be creators themselves, because sometimes they're trying to impart their own ideas on you. I think that's always tricky. I think a good manager is somebody who loves to listen and loves to encourage, and less about telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing. They should be really, hopefully, a fan of your ability.
Was your first manager good? Was it like a horror story, or was it?
No. My first manager I actually had for a lot of years. My first manager I had for almost 17 years. He was a very well-known comedy manager, and our philosophies just changed. I went from a boy to a man, working with this guy. And over the years, one thing I was really grateful was he never. I think one time he told me what to say on stage. He was like, you should add this line," and it was terrible. And it was on Letterman. It was like my third Letterman appearance. And I remember just walking off after, and he was like, "I thought that would be funny." And I was like, "Yeah, no, you're not funny. I'm funny." I totally forgot that. I believed that you were funnier than me for a minute, and that's not the. And that was the only time he did that. But it was. I never forgot it, and I think that again, I think that. Not everybody who's creative has the ideas. Frank Sinatra sang other people's songs, and he's Frank Sinatra, but he knew the people to pair up with. He knew the people to be tandem with, and I think that a great manager is going to help you to embark on your journey and not theirs.
All right, we'll do a couple more. Jeannie Cole says, "What behind the scenes..."
Everybody has two names.
Yeah, they give their last name. "What behind the scenes advice would you give to a woman who might want to try doing stand-up comedy?"
I think that this is an incredible time for females in just in comedy across the board, because I think that they've been able to show us exactly what they want to show us, and not through maybe the guidance of a male, is tip of the arrow, so to speak. And I think women like Kristen Wiig, and I mean just currently. She's brilliant. I had the opportunity to work with her when I did SNL, so I got to see how she, manufactured these characters, and her confidence, and just she's the best. But I think it's Tina Fey and people of that ilk. But I think that what's difficult in the world of stand-up in particular is that, especially at the lower kind of rung, it's very seedy. There's a lot of people wanting you to I'll do you a favor if you hang out with me on the comedy couch over here.
Still?
That still exists. Absolutely,
wow.
that still exists. Yeah, no. Lower rung of most professions, there's still going to be that guy who's trying to give you a fucking back massage when you don't want it, right? You're like, ugh. So I think that, and I've been friends with Amy Schumer since before anybody knew the name Amy Schumer, and I watched Amy kind of forge her own way. And I think that really crucial is to stick to your constitution early. Mm-hmm. You have to. So easy. You want to be malleable, and you want to kind of maybe I can do, but you can't give in and start doing things that. Take away your spirit and your sparkle. You know what I mean? I think for a woman in particular,
sparkle is key.
Yeah, and yes. I think that all performers should have the sparkle. But I think especially with with women, men can take away the sparkle. There's a way that men can go about doing that, and I think that women need to be able to stick to their own kind of constitution and not allow the flotsam and jetsam to come in and kind of dull that. I think, and I've seen it. I've seen that happen, and yet I've seen other,
Amy Schumer's a great example of how to
yeah,
stick to
no, she slept with everybody. No, Amy.
She would make that joke.
No,
probably.
Amy is the boss, and Amy's incredibly prolific and smart, and you could see it. She was a whip right from the very beginning. But I think a lot of it was because she didn't allow herself. We put ourselves in positions sometimes, and we wonder how did we get there. But come on, sometimes we participate in things that it's real easy to talk yourself out of certain elements of how you get from A to B. And I think that she saw very early on what she needed to do, and her voice was pretty strong right out of the gate. So it's really I admire that.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up here with Maddie Castano. How do you stay inspired to keep your material fresh?
I stay alive. I figure as long as I'm alive, then there's something.
Things.
No, I just something occurs to me almost every day. There's something kind of unique and interesting that makes me want to get on stage and question it. And I think that if you have the opportunity to come down and kind of see me in the in the playground right now of like working on new material, And if even if it's interesting to you, if you have the opportunity to see me a few nights in a row, then you can kind of see how I dismantle things and rebuild it. And it may seem like minute, but it's a lot of kind of shifting and trying to figuring out the right tone and my real true perspective on certain things. And I think that when you are a part of that, when you see another artist, creative person, I love seeing a lot of bands, when you see musicians, and when you see somebody actually putting together their performance, I think it's so inspiring, and I think it's one of the most important gifts we can give ourselves, is to get out of your own space sometimes and watch somebody else, not just what they complete, don't just go to the final show, go to the rehearsal, watch somebody get mad at themselves. Fuck, damn it, all right, can we do that again? I love seeing those moments. Those are my favorite, I like those behind the scene moments, seeing how the confidence somebody earns when they figure it out on their own. When you watch The Shining behind the scenes making of, and Jack Nicholson is getting ready for that big scene with the axe where Shelley Duvall's in the bathroom, and you can find it on YouTube. He walks onto the set and people are like, "Good morning, Jack. Hey, hi," and he's you watch him go through the whole thing, and you can almost see like he's insecure, he's feeling a little weird. You're around set people and everybody doing their job, so you're out of your element because you want the room to be empty, but you watch him 10, 11, 13 seconds, and then finally it's like, then he's like, "I'm ready." And I love seeing that. I love seeing that he wasn't ready at second 4 or 7 or 11, but when he knew he was ready, then it all came together. And I think that as long as I'm inspired by that, and as long as I feel that, then I hope that I can say, like, now my friend Jerry Lewis, I've gotten to know Mr. Jerry Lewis over the last couple of years. I just had dinner with Jerry Lewis last week in Vegas, and at 90 years old,
wow.
He's still vin and vigor and inspired to create something brand new, and he's done that enough times, and that inspires me because I see other artists on their path, and I like seeing people win. I like seeing people put wins in the win column, and I look forward to whatever my next win is going to be as well.
We'll be back here in 40 years to talk about that.
All right, let's do it.
Thanks so much, Dane. Let's give a big round of applause.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Good luck to you. Thank you.